Hello and welcome to 52 Weeks. This week we're going to continue the discussion of Chapter 5, Housing, and in this chapter I've split it up into 6 segments to make it a little bit easier to digest. That was looking at the introduction, number 2, the building typology, number 3, building statistics, number 4, issues in housing, number 5, observations, and number 6, building blocks of Harrisburg. In Chapter 5, Housing, this is really a crux piece because of the amount of residential structures within Harrisburg. In this particular chapter, there's a citywide reinvestment that needs to be made, and this involves planning within the community. And this involves the comprehensive plan, number 2, the residential design guidelines, and number 3, an affordable housing ordinance. And it's been said in this chapter that all 3 documents are necessary to steward sound reinvestment in the city's residential neighborhoods. And a lot of this focuses on the areas of that have been underserved for so many years, decades and decades within Harrisburg. In the Chapter 5, we're going to be connecting back to the introduction, since we did start this, and I started this many weeks ago, and there's a gap. We're pulling together the residential structure data, going back that there's over 25,000 housing structures in the city, and that consists of 75% of the city's structures, and also that over 53% of them were built before 1939, which is about over 13,000 structures before 1939. So there's a lot of the residential structures do need attention. So we continue this idea of the historic development of Harrisburg. It was a trading post. It was an industrial growth that continued to permeate through the city because of its location along the river and across the state. Then we get into 1900, which is the City Beautiful movement, and we start to understand city planning. And really, that was the first comprehensive plan that structured the city. And you can see from this diagram, looking at industrial areas, we got the pre-1900 and the post-1900 development through the city. So as we continue into the historic development, we can see that there's housing types that continue to grow and boom. These are looking at the types of duplexes that are out there from the turn of the century to the 1910s and then into the 1920s duplexes. And the duplex really is just one structure with 2 residences, but it's a very unique setup through the U.S. Because of the versatility. So this duplex housing is the dominant housing type within the city because of the flexibility we'll see in the next part of this building typologies. As we look at the growth that happens through the city and its housing, we've got the inner ring, which is everything that's pre-1900s, the pre-City Beautiful movement. And then there's an outer ring, which is the post-1900, post-City Beautiful movement. Again, the duplex and row houses account for 48% of housing stock within the city. As we look at this continuation that happens with residential, this is a great diagram that shows the community commercial areas, major streets that are here. So we're looking at the growth and expansion and supporting the community commercial. They developed along the main streets, north, south, and west to east through the city. So you can also have a reference of here the Central Business District, which is located as orange on the map, and green is the Capitol complex. The community commercial areas are important because as the comp plan highlighted through public input, we continue to build on where our growth should be happening. And quote right out of the comp plan, one of the most important policy goals of the city is to direct substantial investments towards former industrial areas such as Uptown, South Harrisburg, 17th Street Industrial Corridor, and Cameron Street. So all of these are highlighted on this diagram, and also the green spaces that are nearby to those as either campuses or parks that we talked about in Chapter 4. This is all just a continuation of this intro into the Chapter 5 housing, and it's important to set the precedent for why this is going to be a strategic chapter to be thinking about for the next decade, because housing is going to be a critical piece to focus on and understand that we need diversity in housing, and we also need to address some of the long-term needs within our housing structures that need maintenance, but also the residents who are trying to afford some of these houses. So this is where
diversity of housing type and affordability need to be meshed in a new way that looking at outside of our area for best practice, look at how do we put policy in place and also guidelines. It is critical that we look at the comprehensive plan, the residential design guidelines, and an affordable housing ordinance. These three things must come together and are necessary to see this into the next decade.